My name's Janine Vanderholst. I've been teaching in New Zealand for 45 years. I was a school principal. I'm semi-retired now because I'm over 65, but I still relieve in early education and also primary.
Hello, ma'am. My name is Padmaja. I am a 7th grader from Z.P.H.S Ilavaram. I am so excited to interact with you. Now, I would like to ask you a question. Can I ask, ma'am?
Yes, go ahead.
Could you please tell us about professions that are so demanding in New Zealand, especially for Indians?
Okay, so most of the Indians that have come over recently are professionals in doctors, nurses, teachers in maths and science in secondary, engineers, also caregivers in our rest homes. Elderly people do not live with their children. They go into special places where they're looked after by caregivers and nurses, and many Indians have come over to do that job. Also, workers in agriculture, horticulture, and dairy farms.
Could you please share those facts about visa restrictions, especially imposed on Indian immigration?
Okay, so after COVID, we had a real shortage of people. So there was a lot of people came from India, South Africa, and many other countries to fulfill gaps in nurses and medical fields, just in many areas. But now it's that so many came in that now they've changed the visa requirements. We're still short of doctors and nurses, and only teachers, and we let in a lot of early childhood teachers, but now it's tightening up to be in the science and maths area.
Okay.
So the visa situation changes all the time. It's just that we had so many people in that it's caused problems with housing and education. Classes have got much bigger in some of the more popular areas like our capital cities.
This is Nandakishore, a native student from Z.P.H.S Ilavaram. Now, I'd like to ask a question. Here my question is, what is the age of retirement for teachers in New Zealand? Do you think that teaching is much respected profession?
Okay, in New Zealand, the retirement age for all people is 65, but you don't have to actually stop teaching. Because in New Zealand at 65, we get what's called superannuation, and that means money from the government for retirement. It's not a great lot of money when you're living here, but it probably seems a lot for you. So we get, at the moment, I get $800 a fortnight from the government just for being 65 or older. But I also relief teach as well. So I'm still teaching, I'm 66. And some of my friends who are up to 70, we still go in when the teachers get sick to help our income because, so 65 is generally the age that people retire. In New Zealand, teaching's become more difficult because of student behaviour, and we also have a lot of special needs children in normal classes, and it makes it very hard for the teachers to cope. So it used to be a highly regarded profession. Now it's probably the secondary level and up is highly regarded. Primary, not so much, because of some of the behaviour. So we have quite a bad problem with special needs children disrupting classes and things like that, because our government hasn't spent enough money on teacher aides and offering support to those students who need it.
So, Genevieve, you have, while answering to this question, you have mentioned the fact that you have been currently facing a few issues like behavioral issues and as well as a special children issue. So, when special children and normal children sit together in a single classroom, definitely it's a challenging for a teacher to deal with the special children. And the normal students definitely try to humiliate the special children. And in turn, the special children face a lot of issues. I mean, the mental trauma they go through. So same time, the teacher, it's a uphill task to manage these two children, I mean, normal students and as well as the special children. So as a teacher, how do you manage these two students?
Well, if they're really handicapped, they have a person with them. The government funds a special person. They might take the child out of the classroom sometimes. At secondary level, the special needs, they tend to go to classes within the school that are for special needs. But at primary level, it causes a lot of stress on the teacher when you've got people who can't sit down for very long and disrupt the class, and that disrupts the whole learning for all the children. So a lot of teachers are finding it very difficult. It's not so much the special needs ones, it's more we have a gang problem in New Zealand, and some of the gang kids come from pretty bad homes and they don't have very good skills. So they can be quite disruptive if they get bored, or they quite violent at times in some schools. It depends on the school that you go to.
Okay. So at the age of 65, teachers in New Zealand, they give the retirement officially. So they can work longer than 65, up to 70 or something like that. So in your neighborhood, on the whole, how long the teachers work even after the retirement of 65 years? How long they work? Do they work until 80 years, 80 or 90, something around?
No. Just when they've had enough of it, really. I do. Last week I worked 4 days. This week I've worked 3 days. So we just pick whether we want to work or not. It's just that life in New Zealand is very expensive at the moment with food and increasing costs. So most of us have been in what's called KiwiSaver right through our careers. So we save for our retirement from the day we start teaching. So we have that money, but we also, to get a better standard of living, we carry on working for as long as we can, really, physically. So that's usually most people no longer than about 67, 68, maybe 70.
If anyone wants to visit your country, I mean, if anyone wants to immigrate to your country, so what are the things that you want to suggest to those Indians to look after before they arrive to your country? So do you specifically suggest anything to these young immigrants that likely to visit and that likely to immigrate to your country and they are likely to settle in your country? Are there any tips that you would like to offer to them?
Yeah, okay. So one is the is to be really good at written English as well as spoken English, because my son hires Indian workers for he's in the medical field and he does traumatic brain injury work, and he's found that while they can speak really well, the Indians he's hired, they fall down with the written language, and it's things like similes and local language. Like, for instance, in New Zealand, we have a term that if you're going to someone's place, you say, oh, can you bring a plate? And it means, can you bring a plate of food? And some people have turned up with an empty plate because they didn't understand that. But, that's what I'm talking about. So he's found that a lot of the Indian nurses that he's hired are really good workers, but they fall down when it comes to some of the written work. So I'd say be really strong at your written language, your grammar, your spelling, and things like that. And also go as high as you can academically in your own country, because you can't be a doctor in India and come straight to New Zealand as a doctor. You have to pass some special exams. The nurses, my son brought out 30 nurses from Mumbai, and they had to do a 3-month training session in New Zealand and to pass as nurses here, even though they were experienced nurses from India. And they were paid for that. And they are very good workers, but he says they fall down because of their written language.
Yeah,
Is Indian.
Why is Indian family system different from Kiwi family system? Do you think that Indian family system is inspiring to other countries?
Okay, yes. Well, the family, I've dealt with quite a few Indian families when I'm teaching, and we find that the Indian family structure is stronger than New Zealand. I think the Indian children have more respect for their parents. I think that also you respect older family members. Um, and in New Zealand, family's still important, but there's a lot more family breakups, and the family unit isn't as strong as India. Um, the only thing that I would say that would be a weakness is that some of Indian boys seem to be quite spoiled, and can be a bit naughty in New Zealand schools. The girls tend to be harder working, although both work hard. But I think the girls are a bit more motivated than some of the boys. Some of the Indian boys are a little bit spoiled, I think.
Ma'am,
Oh, very good, Maori.
my name is Gayatri and I graduated from Z.P.H.S High School, Ilavaram. I'm so jubilant to interact with you. Here I would like to ask you a question. Can I ask, ma'am?
Yes.
What is your opinion on activities of Hari Krishna sir connecting with the global educators across the globe? Do you think that he is an inspiring educator?
Oh, absolutely. I think Mr. Hari Krishna is a leader in making in realizing that global connections are the key in developing a worldview and opening opportunities to better themselves and the world in general. Hari Krishna's seeking out a people at the forefront of education around the world is inspirational because it is through knowing about the best practices that we can become more knowledgeable ourselves. So I think that Mr. Hari Krishna is a leader in this, and I think many schools will be wanting to be doing this in the future.
So why Indians are so successful in New Zealand in all fields? That's his question.
Okay, so they've got because of the strong cultural values. Work ethic is very strong. Your strong family ties and your strong religious beliefs, a desire to improve yourself, and willingness to participate in New Zealand culture. So the Indians that do the best here will go and join their colleagues and mix in with the New Zealand society rather than just mixing with Indians. The ones that don't do so well stay, isolated, a bit more isolated. So the Indian family that I brought out, that I helped bring out into Hamilton, they are very successful. They've just bought their first home, $1 million house in Hamilton, and they have changed careers to come here, and they're being very successful because, they've got a really strong work ethic, and also, yeah. So there's a number of factors, but mainly it is motivation to succeed, and the strong family ties that they have working together as a team.
What are the main things that are so expensive? Is it housing? Is it food? It's clothing? So
It's
what
everything.
are the main aspects?
Yeah, the average house in our main city is $1 million, and that's just for a plain, fairly ordinary house. It's also food is very expensive. Like to feed a family here is about $300 a week, New Zealand dollars. Transport, you have to have your own car basically, or even two cars. And the average car is about 15,000 New Zealand dollars. It's not easy. It's a little bit easier in the regions. Houses are cheaper and easier to come by. Rent in Auckland is for a 3-bedroom house or 2-bedroom house is about 750 New Zealand dollars a week. So some families are finding it very tough in New Zealand at the moment. So if they come, they have to be willing to maybe lower the expectations in terms of housing. Maybe buy a second-hand car that's not so great, or be on a public transport system. And basically like put up with living maybe with another family, and then for a couple of years, and then buying a house together with another family. I know quite a few Indians that have done that. They bought it's just two of them have bought a house together, and because you have to have a 20% deposit. So 20% of, say, $1 million is that's what you have to buy a house in Auckland. In New Plymouth, where I live, maybe you can get one for 700,000, but you still have to have over 20% deposit. So a lot of Indian families, one lives at the top, one lives at the bottom, and they buy a house together because that's the only way that they can afford it. So costs have gone up a lot in New Zealand, but so have incomes. So a teacher who's been teaching for, say, 15 years, who's in secondary, will be on nearly $100,000. Yeah.
So which profession you think is so demanding in New Zealand, and which profession people they are earning a lot of money in New Zealand?
Doctors earn quite well, teachers who earn quite well, engineers, but also even if you haven't got the ability to do medical, we have a great need for agriculture and horticultural workers, like even working on a dairy farm. So you can work yours if you're willing to get up early in the morning and milk cows in the cold and stuff. You can actually buy your own herd and you can become a millionaire in New Zealand. The world's your oyster in New Zealand. Anyone can become successful through hard work, because we don't have a caste system history, and it's through education. And like I said, you don't have to be the brainiest one, but you have to have good work ethic and be willing to take chances.
Okay, could you please share the typical food that Kiwis take as a morning breakfast, as a lunch, and as a supper? So what is your preference of food in Kiwi land? So what is the typical food that the Kiwis take?
Okay, so for breakfast, if you walked into a lunchroom with spicy Indian food, they'll ask you to leave because they can't stand the smell. Sorry, are you there? Yeah, so for breakfast, porridge, which is or oats, and a cup of coffee usually, some fruit maybe. For morning tea, I don't really have morning tea, but maybe a cup of tea or coffee and maybe a piece of fruit or a biscuit. And for lunch, sandwiches. If you and for tea, for dinner, we usually have a cooked some meat. It could be beef because we eat beef, because we're big beef producers. So it usually has meat, 3 or 4 veggies, potatoes. Sometimes we have rice. We like rice and chicken. We like butter chicken. And my Indian friends in Hamilton, she makes the best butter chicken, I think, in the world. She was absolutely brilliant. So basically, we have a very diverse range. My neighbour catches lots of fish from our ocean just right near New Plymouth, and I get some beautiful fish that I can cook up. So basically, we don't. A lot of our food isn't spicy. Very few New Zealanders like really spicy food. And even our Indian friends in Hamilton, they said they've cut down on their spices because they find that they're putting a lot less spice.
Yes. So please.
So an interesting thing is some of the Indian families, they've all bought houses all in the same area in Hamilton, and they cook their spicy food in the garage. Where the car is, instead of putting the car in there, they cook their spicy food in there so it doesn't go right through the house from their new kitchens.
Please give me a message. Can you say a message to my students?
Yeah, so you guys are speaking very well. I understood that much clearer this time. If you want to achieve in life, you just have to take risks. You have to go do the best work that you possibly can and reach the highest standards that you can in education. Stay focused, and be prepared to like take risks. Like moving countries is a big risk, but you can, if you want to live a really good life in a beautiful country, you come to New Zealand, because our most popular name is Singh here, S-I-N-G-H, and Indians are making a really valuable product for New Zealand. We really value Indians here, and I've got some very close friends, and they're just amazing people. So you can do whatever you want with your life, but aim for the best that you can be.